This chapter is focused on the importance of real-time guest feedback, both in the restaurant and off-premise channels. Zack Oates, CEO of Ovation, will share his perspective on the industry trends, best practices, and insights into how technology can enable a better guest experience that actually drives profits. Zack, first, thank you for sponsoring the ebook. None of this would have been possible without your support. I know we are both extremely passionate about the guest experience, so let's get right into this.
So tell me, Zack, tell me a little bit about Ovation, and then we'll get into really talking about what your product and services do, and talk about the new norm.
Yeah, absolutely. So Ovation is all around actionable guest feedback. Think of it like your digital table touch, right? In the old world, you had this table touch, you went up and you made sure that everyone had a good time, because we all know the value of a good customer. They're going to bring in more business. They're going to come back once a month for the next 5 years. They're going to share their experience online. So every customer is worth thousands of dollars. And so in the old norm, we did things like table touches. We would go up and we'd make sure that everyone had a good experience. And now with everything being off-prem, you can't see their faces. You can't notice those small little cues that hospitality people are so good at just picking up. So what do we do now? Well, that's where Ovation comes in, where we do a quick pulse survey, no matter how someone ordered. If they order through a third-party delivery, native ordering, they come in store, they are doing the drive-through, however they pick up your food, we ask them, how was everything? And there's a lot of different ways that we do that through technology. We make it so simple for them to ask them, how was it and why? If it was a great experience, we push them online to leave positive reviews. If it wasn't, we push them through our award-winning platform to give feedback back and forth and make sure you have that conversation. And then we give everyone at corporate a really good view, that 30,000-foot view of what's going on in my locations. How are things happening? Because now more than ever, we can't afford to be flying blind. And so Ovation opens up the line of communication and makes it easy for the customers to give feedback, easy for management to respond, and really simple to get that 30,000-foot overview.
No, that's amazing. And I think, that actionable information, we'll get into that in a little bit more detail, but people have been doing surveys for a long time. So what's the differentiator, and how has technology enabled a better experience of really kind of getting that actionable, insights, which we'll get into, why that's important in a few minutes. But, tell me why those kind of long surveys that we used to do online just aren't effective anymore.
Well, let me just ask you, and I know that Kelly, you have some incredible experience with surveys in the mid 90s, you pioneered receipt surveys because it was as we've talked about before, you understand the value of that guest experience. But as we look at what it is today, let me just ask you, when was the last time you took a receipt survey?
The 90s.
when you were
when I was QAing the survey, right? I mean, I think that's a fair point, because I've probably started a few, and then they start to get into minutes and minutes and minutes of questions, and the next, and you just get kind of tired and stop.
Yeah, and it's so interesting, right? Because the number, we do surveys all the time. And as we were asking the public about their experience with surveys, what we found is that over 90% of people hate receipt surveys because they take a long time, they never hear back. And, in the end, the thing that they get, it's like too much of a hassle. And hassle actually is the number one word that they used in the open form to ask about how they feel about receipt surveys. They said it was too much of a hassle. You're typing in a long URL, a store number, a 26-digit receipt number, and then you're answering 15, 20, 75 questions when all you wanted to do was let them know that they forgot an item. And so what happens as a result of the receipt surveys? And back in the mid 90s, before online reviews were really popular, that was how people gave feedback. So sure, it had a better take rate, and it was new, it was novel. Well, then online reviews came out, and guess what? if someone has a problem, they're not going to go through a 20-minute process to share that with you. What are they going to do? They're just going to go leave a negative review. And what we find is that by shortening the survey to 2 questions, by making it super accessible, so they don't need to download an app, go to a website, log in, create an account. We're carrying around our phones.
Mm-hmm.
All they have to do is scan a QR code, or better yet, it'll get an automated text message based on an integration asking them how their experience was. And then that way we open up that dialogue, we make it a lot easier. So one of the important things to look at is how many people are actually taking the survey. So we have a client, Domino's, and they were getting 5 surveys per week per location. And with Ovation, they're getting 70 surveys completed per week. Now, why? It's because it's short. It's because it's easy. It's because we have tested the right types of incentives that aren't going to, be super expensive for the business, but are going to be worth it for the consumer. We've done all of that work over the millions of surveys that we've conducted to find that optimal range of what's going to work best for the customer and for the business. And so we want to make sure that the restaurants are giving the best experience. And so that when they're asking their guests about the experience, they're not creating a bad experience in doing that, which is the irony of it all, right?
Yeah.
Is that answering how was my experience is in and of itself a bad experience.
Exactly. Yeah. No, actually, I never thought of it that way. And I think you brought up a good point earlier, and I think it's interesting, we talk about surveys, which is a point in time past, right? And sounds like with, technology today, it's less about a survey of what happened yesterday. It's about in the moment, real time engagement and dialogue with your customers and building better relationships. And so tell me, if somebody has a bad review, right? Or somebody uses a tool like Ovation and has a bad experience, how do you capture that before it becomes the next, trending topic on social media?
Yeah, exactly. So imagine that you just ordered through a third-party delivery system. You get your bag. Inside the bag is a bag stuffer, and it says, how did we do? Let us know for your chance to win a $100 gift card. Answer 2 questions. So you scan the QR code, you answer it, and guess what? They forgot one of your items. So you let them know, forgot an item, you click send to management, and to you, Kelly, you think you're done. You think I've done my part, I've given feedback to whatever survey tool this is, and I'll never hear back from them. Mm-hmm. The manager gets that alert, sees it that they forgot an item, clicks 3 buttons on the Ovation app, and then all of a sudden your phone buzzes 3 minutes after you send that. And you look at it and it says, hey, Kelly, this is Sam, the manager here. So sorry we forgot your item. I know we can't make it up to you this time, but here is $10 off your next order. So sorry. Hope that we could earn your business back. And now you, Kelly, how do you feel? How do you feel when you've gotten that quick response? You vented, and then you've gotten a response, and bam, you feel great.
You feel heard. You feel heard, right?
You feel heard, which is the number one thing that people want to feel when they give feedback. Feel heard. Now, if you don't listen to them, guess who will? There's a lot of people on Google. In fact, 96% of people who are going to Google you and look at your reviews before they choose your restaurant, they're going to check out what people have said, and that's how they're going to feel heard. Now, a week later, so you respond, and again, this is all through text message. You respond saying, thank you so much. Now, meanwhile, Sam's manager sees this whole conversation has happened, notices through our back-end system that there's a recurring problem about menu items being forgotten. And so they set up a process to make sure that doesn't happen again. Meanwhile, a week later, you order directly through the company, because that's where you could order online to redeem that $10 coupon. And when you order online, you get your food, you get an automated message. How was everything? Because since you already ordered with them, they've got your information. And the nice thing is that you had a great experience. Everything worked smoothly. So you had a great time, and you leave a 5-star review, and the Sam and the, his boss are notified about your great experience. And that's the kind of, that's what we need. That is what guest feedback is today. Because guess what, Kelly? Everyone who's online is used to seeing that little button in the bottom right-hand corner that says chat with us now.
Yeah.
And that's what they expect. And just because, we don't get a pass anymore because we're a restaurant.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's become the norm, right? And I think
absolutely.
I think this, the new norm that's being defined, we talk about, and you and I have chatted about this in the past. The restaurants have become so complicated, right? I mean, and it's they already had a tough job, and I've talked to everybody that I've talked to so far about this. Everybody's, when you come into the restaurant in the morning or in the afternoon for your shift, it never ends the way you thought it was, right? Because restaurants, like, there's so much going on and so much for managers and so much for the staff to do. And then you throw the complexity of omni-channel and these new kind of ways of ordering and digital and third party and curbside pickup, managing all that, the technology has to be seamless. It has to be, they're buzzwords, but it has to have this connection where data's flowing, between all these different partners. And a lot of why we're having these discussions to help people out, kind of navigate through their tech stack and making sure that they have the right information at the right time to make the best decisions. And we have to use technology to do that and take that kind of friction off of the manager, so that they do what they do best, is serve really good food and make sure their customers are happy. And how have you guys changed or pivoted with some of, kind of post-COVID? What have you had to change in kind of your direction? I'm assuming integration with third-party ordering systems and trying to tackle some of those third parties has been some of the challenge. And how have you guys addressed it?
Absolutely. Whereas before we really worked with restaurants, and for all intents and purposes, restaurants, a lot of them prior to this, like you were saying, had a single channel approach, right? Which was people come in, they eat our food, they have a good experience, they leave, right? And that was the experience. It was within these four walls, very controlled. And so we created a lot of survey tools to work within those four walls. Things like table toppers, things like iPad kiosks, and other phone number collection tools. Well, now you're absolutely right. It's an omni-channel world for the restaurants that are thriving. And so we have adapted to that. And now that's why we integrate with all of the, the great online ordering systems out there, awesome loyalty programs, and really focus, and great point of sales. And we've really focused on, let's meet the customer where they're at. If they want to order through a third party, great. Let's find a way to, to give them a quick pulse survey. How was everything through that methodology? That would be most conducive to a third party ordering. If it's a loyalty, great. Let's do a follow-up after a check-in. If it's Olo, awesome. Let's connect with them, or Lunchbox or Bebot. There's a lot of great tools that we now integrate with, and while each of those tools may have some sort of, hey, how was everything? Thumbs up, thumbs down. What we're focused on is driving that action, driving that action with the individual customer and with the company as a whole. And that's how we've been able to really focus, is where that layer that sits across all of the channels, to give the operators the opportunity to see what's going well, what isn't in the different channels, and to make sure that, if drive-through is really suffering, well, great. Let's look at the drive-through feedback, figure out why, and then, improve there. Because that is the type of action that we need to take. And we could no longer wait until that feedback eventually trickles up from the boots on the ground managers, or until those monthly reports of these long form surveys of the 3 pieces of feedback that we got last month. We need data. We need lots of it. And that's what technology enables. And the great thing is that it takes more time to handle those 3 pieces of feedback the old way than these 70 pieces of feedback the new way. because it's technology enabled while still keeping the humanity of the conversation, that dialogue, like Danny Meyer talks about, between the customer and the restaurant. And that's hospitality. And that's what we're, bringing into the new normal.
Yeah, and so important. And I think another kind of highlight of that conversation is talking about being tech enabled, right? And so and you guys talk about your journey before, and your business direction was really more in restaurant. I know looking at the apps and kiosks, and a lot of companies were headed in that direction, and because of COVID had to shift. And without having that flexibility in your platforms, some of these legacy technologies that have been in place for a long time just couldn't adapt fast enough, right? And by the time they made the changes to adapt to the new world, they're getting left behind, and operators are kind of held a little bit ransom by some of their legacy investments. And so having a tech-enabled strategy in the restaurant and having partners and picking platforms that have this kind of interoperability is going to be so key as we move forward. And I think the other big part is you talked about lots of data. So how do you take all this data? Because now, we have a wealth of information, and really kind of synthesize it into something that somebody can actually do something about. And it's not just about feedback, it's sales and labor and everything. And so I think this kind of journey, this BI journey, is super important too, and giving managers the right kind of information and that they need at the right time to do the right action. Any thoughts
totally.
on that?
And it's all about integration, which is why it's so important that, nothing's wrong. Not saying that they're, bad, these legacy systems, but the importance of having nimble technology, because things are changing so rapidly. We're no longer making an investment into a piece of technology that was built and stays the same for 10 years. Those days are dead. Right. And the restaurant industry has historically been holding on to a lot of those things because of the switching costs. But now what we're seeing is, with so much nimble technology out there, it is critical to find partners that are adapting with the changes, partners that are willing to integrate, that can cross-share information that is helpful and legal. Right. We don't want to be obviously sharing any private information, but having those tools to talk to each other, because you can find a company that's going to do everything very poorly. What the best companies do is they find companies that do something specific extremely well and play nicely with others. And because the nice thing is about that is they are, for example, like Ovation, we talk to hundreds and thousands of restaurants. We see what's working. We see what isn't. We adapt our technology and change and grow. And as the former CEO, the CEO of LinkedIn, he said that you should launch your products so that in 6 months you were embarrassed that was your product. And because things are growing and changing and so rapidly. And we are a completely different product in terms of what it looks like and the power of it. If you look at us from 2 years ago to today, you're like, whoa, like this has blown up. And that's because as we learn, as our customers help us to learn, and as we see the trends in the market, we've built our system to be agile and to maintain the functionalities that our customers love, but make it better every single day. And it's hard to do that when you're working with a very big company or with a company that's trying to do everything.
Right.
You want to find those specialized companies and get them to talk together, because then the data can work for you. It's not what they refer to as data porn, where you sit there and people just like scroll through data and just like see what there is. Like, you don't just want to scroll through it. You want to take action on it. And so that's why one of the things that we've done is we have a business intelligence platform that looks at all of the online reviews, all of the feedback that got through Ovation, and it puts it in one screenshot. And so you could look at your screen and see how all of your locations are doing on a variety of metrics, because that is so needed to synthesize all of that information together. And now, with Ovation, again, we can we can couple that and send that over to labor management systems. We could coordinate that with point of sales, with loyalty. And so you can see the trends of satisfaction and revenue, because it is one thing as we were looking about it, as looking at satisfaction, guest feedback isn't the afterthought, right? Guest feedback is the end result. It's the purpose. It's the goal. And a 5%, this is according to Bain and Company. And by the way, the author of this article is the guy that invented the Net Promoter Score, right? So he's been doing this for decades. And they've proven that a 5% increase in customer retention produces a 25% increase in profits. And so these customers, it's not just like a nice to have where it's like, okay, I want to check a box. This is going to be
it's real dollars.
The biggest revenue driver. And this is how you create loyalty. Like a punch card, that doesn't create loyalty to get your 11th sandwich for free, right?
Yeah.
What creates loyalty is making sure that you have met the expectations of your customers that have been set by you or by others. And you need to make sure that when they're not met, that you fix it. And when they are met, that you celebrate it.
Yep. Zach, you brought up a good point in there about playing nice with others, right? And I think, maybe several years ago, it was a lot difficult, but I think, what I'm super excited about in the industry is you've seen this kind of collaboration across platforms and seeing people like working together. And obviously tech has driven that. But really, again, one of the purpose we're putting this book together and talking to a lot of thought leaders in the industry, because everybody's trying to, we all want small business, big business, medium-sized restaurants, companies, we all want them to win, right? And the only way they're going to win is if the partners that they invest in help them grow and meet their pain points. So, I think that's a really, really important point. So I'm a restaurant, I've been doing the traditional surveys. Like what advice, what do you see as some of the pitfalls we're setting up a program like yours? And, how do I start this journey if we're not on it? Like what advice would you give to people out there listening?
Yeah. So if somebody wants to take a DIY approach, right? Get a phone number on Google, and get a QR code that says text us if there are any problems, and put that in every bag, right? Like there's a very simple DIY approach. If you have one location, you have a cafe, maybe that's all you need, right? But what we do at Ovation is we have the whole system in place to have all the different ways to measure, all of the integrations. We've got all of the tools to make it easy to respond and to see those conversations, and all the tools to aggregate and synthesize all that information into one place. So there's a lot of things that you can do to get started and do it yourself. And, I'm never one to try to hold back that information. QR codes, they're back, they're working. People are using them now more than ever. Utilize those QR codes.
But do you think, so that's everybody's moving to QR codes with, so how are we going to kind of avoid QR overload in a restaurant too? Because I'm using my QR code to see a menu now in this kind of frictionless world, using QR codes to pay. I'm going to use a QR code to survey. Like, how do you see guests interacting with that as well too? Do you think it's going to get a little bit overwhelming?
Yeah. And so I think the thing is that at the table, max two QR codes. If you have 2 QR codes on the table, that's like a half too many, right? Like it's just barely too many. Just make sure that there's not QR codes all over the place. Make it simple for the customer, right? So for example, we do table stickers where they get down on the table, they put it on the table and says, hey, how did we do today? 2 questions for your chance to win a $100 gift card. And they scan it, they go through the Ovation process, or they can text it. And some of our customers that are sit down, they have on the bottom right-hand side, check out our menu here. And that is, we found that works really well. But you're absolutely right. You don't want to just put these QR codes everywhere, because it kind of loses a little bit of like the soul of a restaurant, right? Then Hard Rock Cafe, it's like, is it really cool if there's like QR codes everywhere? Like, I don't know, like it kind of seems like a little tacky. But to have a couple to make the experience better is great. And then in terms of like working with a company like Ovation, I would say the most important thing is, as you're looking at these companies, make sure that they fit the 3 criteria of: 1, it needs to be easy for the customer, both easy to take the survey and easy to complete the survey.
Mm-hmm.
2, you need to make it just stupid simple to respond to that guest. If they've put the time and effort into telling you how they feel or to telling you something that you need to do to improve, give them the courtesy of responding.
Yeah,
Now,
I was gonna say, you have to respond.
Yeah,
You
and
can't
with
take
tools,
feedback and not respond.
right. And with tools like Ovation, what we've done is we've taken 98% of the work and automated it.
Mm-hmm.
And so it is just so simple to respond. But make sure that the tools you're looking at have the opportunity to respond. And then lastly, make sure that all these tools are put together. They give you that insight that you need to find the patterns, the trends. For example, one of our customers saw that every afternoon they got feedback that the chicken was dry. They did shawarmas, and he went and started digging into all that feedback and saw that it was always in the afternoon and it was always about the chicken. And so he's like, well, what should we do? And so they decided to cut less chicken in the morning. And that way, if they ran out, they'd have to cut some more in the afternoon, but stopped getting that feedback.
Right.
And reviews went up, feedback was improved. And so those are the types of things that we need to do as operators. We need to take more responsibility over the fact that, we still need to talk to our customers. And if it's digital, it's digital. And if they come in and we can have that experience, great. But even then, my wife and I went out to a nice restaurant for an anniversary, and I appreciated that the waiter literally stood 6 feet away from the table to take our order. And I appreciated the manager didn't come up. We went to another place that it wasn't so nice of a restaurant. And the manager came right up to our table and was standing right over us, talking to us. And it's like, I appreciate you have a mask, but this is too much. Just
too close.
Yeah, exactly. So times have changed, and technology enables us to change with it. And in terms of getting started with Ovation, the nice thing is that it takes a phone call in 15 minutes and we can get you up and running.
That's amazing.
Because of the integrations that we have, and there's a lot of tools that we can add on to it. But in its simplest form, it's that simple, and it makes it so easy to get started, because we want to make sure that as quickly as possible you are connecting with your guests, because there's a new way to do it, and we've listened, we've learned, and we've created that system to make it just that simple for you to get started.
And I think that's amazing, right? And so maybe not every system can get up and running in 15 minutes, but because of the days of these long waterfall 6, 8, 10-month projects, you just can't do that anymore because everything changes so fast. And the customer experience is changing every day as we kind of navigate the new waters, and people have to be adaptable and kind of reactive and responsive to meet the needs of the ever-changing demands of the guests today. So one thing I think we haven't talked about yet, and really is, somewhat, the feedback and all that is absolutely super critical. But the other bonus of part of this is starting to build a really robust customer database, right? And so, we talk about the data and the action and the insights, but, I think the other power of the tool and the technology is getting that kind of that customer data, so you can continue after the experience, have that one-to-one dialogue and that kind of personalization with the guest. How did, again, tools such as Ovation help restaurants to start to have that dialogue post the experience?
So because absolutely everyone reads text messages, right? Text message has a 95% open rate within 3 minutes. So it's not just like a way, did they get it? Did they not? Did it go to spam? Where did it go? It's like, if they got a text message, they read that text message. 95% of the time, within 3 minutes, 98% of all text messages are read. So the great thing about texting is that that customers are getting it, which is why we chose that as our platform to communicate back and forth. It's not email. It's not Facebook Messenger. It's not the WeChat, and all of these things have a place.
Mhm.
But in looking at if you, Kelly, are doing you got a party in a month, you're probably going to create a Facebook event, let people know. If the party's in a week, you're going to send out an email to a bunch of people. But if the party's tonight, it's like, shoot, you're texting them, right?
Yep.
And so that's why we chose the texting platform, to texting as our method of communication with customers. And then as a result, we realized, like, okay, well, now we have all of these phone numbers. They've already given us permission to text them back and forth for the purpose of conversation. Why don't we also add in the terms and conditions that they can receive marketing messages, and let's try that out. Our customers kept on asking about, can you text us? Can we text our customers? And so we built a texting tool for them, and it's been incredible. I mean, with an email, you're going to be getting maybe 1%, maybe 2% redemption rate, like on the high end. With texting, our customers were getting 11 to 15% redemption rates.
That's
right?
awesome.
I mean, that's usually what the open rate is of a mass email. And so the power now of having all this data and texting is really important. Now, like I said, it's not that email doesn't have a place. And so one of the things that restaurants can collect through the Ovation system is email addresses. And now you can take those email addresses, upload them into whatever email system you use, because there's so many great ones out there that we didn't want to create another one. Upload them into your list, upload them into your system, and put them into your campaigns. And so now what we've seen is not only are we able to get people to come back in more with texting, increase that email list, but we've actually helped some of our clients increase their loyalty app download by 30%, because we say if someone had a great experience, we'll automate a text message to go to them that says, hey, thanks for coming in. Glad you had a great experience. Don't forget to download our app to get updates and free food, right? It's like, okay,
awesome.
Yeah. And so those are the types of things that really drive the positive ROI. Because all guest feedback, right? It's all about retaining those customers who would have become a negative review and a lost customer, right? And there's definitely a huge ROI there. That's the service recovery side. On the positive side, getting that retention score up through text marketing and having us enable you to further your marketing efforts to make them more successful is one of the great secrets about Ovation. And not something that when you look at it on the surface, like how is like a survey tool going to help me to drive revenue? Well, that's it. Because exactly like you said, Kelly, we're helping to collect that data of the strangers and utilize the data of your fans.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And it's so important, because technology is all about, right, enabling the business to either drive sales or, improve margins, or, hopefully both along the way. And it's, that ROI is so important. Zack, I really appreciate your time. This is a great conversation. Super important, especially in these times, for people to really start to listen, engage, and hear their customers, because like I said, there's no playbook for what we've been through, and everybody's learning every day, and being adaptive and responding to feedback is going to be super important as people kind of navigate these new waters.
Well, awesome, Kelly. Well, thanks for having us on. Really appreciate all the work that you're doing for the industry, for helping restaurants and tech companies out, because, it's people like you that have all of this wealth of experience that are helping us to figure out how to navigate these waters. And so really appreciate all that you're doing.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Zack.